Today I have 13 direct Louis Vuitton Pacific Chill clones and alternatives, and instead of reviewing them in random order, I'm ranking every one of them number 13 to all the way to number 1. And I want to make the scope of this video clear up front. This video is about direct clones. The hybrids, crossovers, and fragrances with the bigger twists of the DNA are being saved for the part 2. Now, that's because I want this ranking to stay as apples to apples as possible, and because the list is already very long. Here is the list of fragrances that are going to be in the next video. Now, back to this video. There are some big surprises here. One extra gives me some of the weakest performance in the entire lineup. Another pushes into the 7 to 9 hour range, but becomes noticeably denser than Pacific Chill. And the fragrance at number 1 doesn't necessarily have the most complete note list. It simply gives me the closest overall wearing experience. By the end, I will give you closest overall clone, strongest performer, best accuracy and longevity balance, most distinctive direct interpretation, smoothest and most easygoing version, weakest performer, and my number 1 Pacific Chill alternative overall. My ranking is based first on overall scent similarity, then dry down accuracy, performance, and refinement. The dry down matters because citrus, mint, and black currant can make convincing first 5 minutes. The real test is what happens after the opening disappears. Now, being lower in the ranking does not mean it's a bad scent, but rather that it's not as close to the original, in my opinion. With that out of the way, let's establish the benchmark. Now, Pacific Chill sounds simple if you reduce it to citrus, black currant, mint, and summer freshness. But that misses what makes it difficult to clone. Jacques Cavalier-Beltrade built a fruity, green, cooling, slightly earthy composition that still feels unusually transparent. Louis Vuitton prominently highlights black currant accord, citron, and carrot seeds, while a farther picture gives us black currant accord, citron, lemon, orange essence, peppermint, coriander seeds, basil, carrot seeds, ambrette seeds, May rose, apricot, date, and fig facets. Now, the black currant gives the opening tartness. The citrus adds sparkle, and peppermint gives it that chilled effect. Then basil, coriander, and especially carrot seed bring in the green, slightly earthy texture. Apricot, date, fig, and amberette soften everything underneath. The keyword in this whole composition is transparency. Pacific Chill manages to smell juicy without becoming syrupy, minty without becoming toothpaste, and fruity without becoming candy. So when I say a clone is denser, sweeter, or more linear, that is the quality I'm measuring it against. Pacific Chill is the 100% reference point, and in my experience I get roughly 6 hours of longevity with moderate projection for around the first hour and a half to 2 hours. Now, let's start the countdown. Starting countdown at number 13 is Absar Muhit. The published structure is extremely simple. Grapefruit and orange up top, mint, black currant in the middle, and ambroxan with musk in the base. In my experience, similarity comes in around 70 to 75% overall. The opening does better for me, roughly 80%, but the deeper dry down falls closer to about 70%. In my experience, longevity is approximately 5 to 7 hours, with the strongest projection coming during the roughly first hour and a half. Muhit gets the easiest part of the Pacific Chill right. The citrus, mint, and black currant. The opening is refreshing and immediately recognizable. But once it settles, the missing botanical structure becomes obvious. There is no listed carrot seed, basil, coriander, apricot, fig, date, or ambrette. So the dry down becomes cleaner, muskier, and more ambroxan driven. That makes this a good, inexpensive gateway into DNA, but not a detailed recreation. If you just want a broad Pacific Chill vibe for hot weather, this works. If accuracy is the goal, too much disappears after the opening. That puts me here at number 13. Number 12 restores much of the original fruit and green structure. At number 12, we have Zimaya Awatif. The notes are black currant, orange, citron, mint, and coriander up top, apricot, basil, and rose through the middle, and fig, dates, and amberette in the base. Now, in my experience, the overall similarity is roughly 80 to 85%. The opening is around 85% to my nose, while the dry down settles closer to 80%. In my experience, longevity is 6 to 7 hours, with the moderate scent bubble for the first couple hours. Awatif gets much closer because most of the recognizable fruit, citrus, mint, herb, fig, date structure is here. The opening is highlight, bright, juicy, chilled, and very easy to connect with Pacific chill. The important omission is the carrot seed. Without that earthy, root-like structure, I find the heart less layered and the dry down slightly denser and more linear. If your favorite part of Pacific chill is the minty black currant freshness, Awatif is very enjoyable. It just doesn't recreate the full botanical depth. That puts Awatif at number 12. Number 11 moves the DNA in a noticeably wetter direction. Number 11 is Bujairami No Limit. Up top, we have orange, green lemon, mint, and black currant. The middle gives us apricot, basil, and equus accord, and May rose. The base brings date, fig, moss, and ambergris. In my experience, similarity lands around 80 to 85%. The opening is closer for me, roughly 85 to 90%, but the deeper dry down moves down into the 75-80% range. In my experience, longevity is around 6 to 7 hours, with the fragrance remaining noticeable on clothing considerably longer. No Limit opens very convincingly with cold citrus, mint, black currant, apricot, and basil. The major difference is that equus accord, moss, and ambergris, replacing some of the earthy botanical feel of the original. That makes it wetter and more aquatic. In high heat, that can actually be a plus. It feels clean and breezy, but Pacific Chill itself isn't really an aquatic fragrance, so that change costed accuracy in the dry down. If you want more watery version of the DNA, No Limit has a clear lane. For a strict clone ranking, it lands at number 11. Now, number 10 looks even stronger on paper, but runs into a very different problem. Number 10 is Oakcha Tango Noir. The structure is extremely complete. Citron, orange, mint, lemon, coriander, and black currant. Then apricot, basil, carrot seeds, and May rose, followed by fig, dates, and amberette. In my experience, overall similarity is around 85%. The opening sits strongly at 85 to 90% to my nose, while the deep dry down settles closer to 80%. The surprise, in my experience, is the longevity. Roughly 3 to 4 hours of clearly noticeable wear. And that is particularly interesting because Tango Noir is marketed as a 30% extrait de parfum. On paper, Tango Noir seemed to understand the assignment. The carrot seed, basil, apricot, fig, dates, amberette are all here. And opening is convincing. But the texture is denser and slightly sweeter than Pacific Chill. And the bigger issue for me is the performance. Despite being marketed as extrait de parfum, I get only around 3 to 4 hours of clearly noticeable wear. Concentration percentage doesn't automatically equal longevity, and in my lineup, Tango Noir becomes my weakest performer. Strong structure, good opening, disappointing persistent. That puts it at number 10. At number 9 is Maison Alhambra Gin Lowe Vibe. The notes are citron, orange, mint, lemon, black currant, and coriander. Apricot, basil, carrot seeds, May rose, followed by fig, dates, and amberette. In my experience, similarity is approximately 85% overall. The opening reaches around 90% to my nose, but the later dry down sits closer to 80%. In my experience, longevity comes around 4 to 5 hours, with the fragrance moving noticeably closer to the skin after the first couple hours. Gin Lowe recreates much more of that real Pacific Chill blueprint. Carrot seed, basil, apricot, fig, dates, and amberette are all here. So the DNA is immediately recognizable. The drawback is that I find the dry down sweeter, thicker, and more compressed than the original. And the 4 to 5 hour longevity is below several competitors in this video. It respects the unusual ingredients, but the combination of moderate accuracy and shorter performance keeps it outside the top 8. That put Lowe at number 9. Number 8 adds more modern woody backbone. Number 8 is Afnan Rare Reef. Top notes are black currant, orange, citron, mint, coriander, and grapefruit. The heart gives us apricot, basil, rose, and violet leaf. The base is fig, dates, amberette, and amberwood. In my experience, similarity is around 85%. The opening can push close to 90% for me, while the dry down drops into roughly 75 to 80% range. In my experience, longevity is 6 to 7 hours, with the moderate projection for the first 2 hours. Rare Reef has one of the better openings in this lineup. Chilled black currant, citrus, and mint immediately put you in the right world. The important difference is the violet leaf and amberwood. As it dries down, Rare Reefs become woodier, denser, and slightly sharper than Pacific Chill. That lowers the one-to-one accuracy, but it also gives the fragrance more structure and personality. If Pacific Chill sometimes feels too delicate for you, Rare Reef may actually be more satisfying. This is still a direct Pacific Chill alternative, just one with a stronger stylistic fingerprint. The true hybrids and crossover fragrances are being saved for part 2. That makes Rare Reef my most distinctive direct interpretation in this video, and it takes number 8. Number 7 brings us back towards a more literal clone. At number 7, we have Lucianno Coastal Breeze. Citron, orange, mint, lemon, black currant, and coriander open the fragrance. Apricot, basil, carrot seeds, and May rose make up the middle, and fig, dates, and amberette form the base. In my experience, overall similarity is around 85%. The opening reaches approximately 90%, while the dry down sits closer to 80%. Longevity is about 6 to 7 hours, with the opening projecting nicely for the first hour to 2 hours before settling into a softer fruity mask. Coastal Breeze has a very complete structure and a convincing opening, with a cooling citrus, mint, black currant, carrot seed, apricot, basil, dates, and amberette, all supporting the DNA. What keeps it out of the top 6 is the texture. I find it sweeter, muskier, and more saturated than Pacific Chill, so the dry down feels a little heavier and more linear. On a positive side, that also makes it energetic, fruity, and easy to wear, with respectable 6 to 7 hour performance for me. It's a strong all-around clone with no major failures. It simply gets beaten by fragrances above it that are either more accurate or offer better accuracy to performance trade-off. Now we enter the top 6, where the gaps are much smaller. Number 6 is the Pacific Soul number 57 from the clone. And before I get into this one, a quick disclosure. The clone sent this bottle to me free of charge for review. They did not pay me to say anything specific. And as always, what you hear is based on my own experience with the fragrance. The published notes are black currant, orange, and lemon up top, basil, carrot seeds, and May rose in the middle, and fig, dates, and amberette in the base. In my experience, the overall similarity is around 85%. Performance is around 6 to 8 hours, with the strongest projection coming during the first couple of hours. Pacific Soul is a good example of a clone that doesn't list every Pacific Chill note, but keeps the right foundation. More importantly, the carrot seed survives, along with fig, basil, dates, and amberette. So the dry down retains a real green and botanical backbone. What's missing from the published list is peppermint, citron, and apricot. And that changes the personality. The opening feels softer and less aggressive, while the later stages become rounder and slightly creamier. Pacific Soul is the smoothest and most easygoing interpretation in this lineup. If you like Pacific Chill DNA, but finds it tart, citrus, and mint opening a little too sharp, this gives you a softer landing while still preserving the carrot seed character. I get a very respectable 6 to 8 hours. Now, let's enter the top 5. Breaking into the top 5 is Rayhaan Pacific Aura. The notes are citron, mint, orange, lemon, black currant, and coriander, followed by apricot, basil, carrot seeds, and May rose, with fig, dates, and amberette underneath. In my experience, overall similarity sits at around 85 to 90%. Longevity is 5 to 6 hours. with a refreshing scent bubble for roughly the first couple hours. Pacific Aura follows the Pacific Chill structure very closely, and that is its biggest strength. There is no major aquatic deep or heavy woody twist. The carrot seed, basil, fruit, fig, dates, and amberette all point in the right direction. To my nose, opening is a little sharper and more mint-forward than Pacific Chill, and the fragrance is slightly more linear overall. 5 to 6 hours is acceptable, but the next 4 either give me more refinement or more performance, or both. Still, this is absolutely shortlist material, especially if you want a literal interpretation with strong botanical detail. That earns Rayhaan Pacific Aura number 5. At number 4 is Alexandria Pacific Coast. Alexandria lists blackcurrant, cedrat, and lemon up top, coriander seed, basil, peppermint, and orange pulp through the heart, with amberette and soft fruity undertones forming the base. In my experience, overall similarity is 85 to 90%. The opening is around 85% to my nose. The early to mid dry down gets very close to 90%, and deep dry down settles into approximately the 85% range. Longevity is also very good, 7 to 8 hours, making Pacific Coast one of the strongest performers in the rank. Now, Pacific Coast is unusual in this lineup because it gets better after the opening. Right out of the atomizer, I can tell it apart from Pacific Chill because it feels denser and less transparent. But once it settles and that third fruit, citrus and aromatic and amberette come together, and the gap gets noticeably smaller. The early to mid dry down is the sweet spot. And then you add 7 to 8 hour longevity. It isn't quite as multidimensional as Louis Vuitton, but it smelled polished, lasts well, and becomes highly convincing once the opening settles. That combination makes Alexandria my best balance of accuracy and longevity in this entire video, and it takes number 4. Taking the bronze medal at number 3 is Joe Milano Game of Spades bonus. The notes are citron, mint, orange, lemon, blackcurrant, and coriander, followed by apricot, basil, carrot seeds, and May rose, with fig, dates, and amberette underneath. In my experience, overall similarity is 85 to 90%. The opening reaches around 90% to my nose, while the dry down sits closer to 80-85%. Longevity is 6 to 7 hours, with a noticeable scent bubble for the first couple hours. Game of Spades bonus earns the top 3 spot because it keeps the details that many clones simplify. Carrot seed, basil, apricot, fig, dates, and amberette all help the fragrance stay recognizable after the top notes come down. The opening is excellent. Cold citrus, mint, wrapped around juicy blackcurrant, and the dry down keeps enough of that earthy, fruity green character to remain convincing. Pacific Chill still has more movement and transparency. Joe Milano feels slightly fuller and more linear. But once we are this high in the lineup, this is a relatively small compromise. With 6 to 7 hours of longevity and a very complete botanical structure, Game of Spades takes number 3. My runner-up is Dua Chilling by the Pacific. Dua lists 13 notes: citron, orange, lemon, mint, blackcurrant, coriander, and apricot, basil, carrot seed, May rose, dates, fig, and amberette. In my experience, overall similarity is roughly 85 to 90%. The opening reaches 90% to my nose, while the dry down settles closer to 85% range. In my experience, longevity is the big story, roughly 7 to 9 hours on skin, with the strongest projection during the first couple of hours. Dua goes after almost the whole Pacific Chill structure, and the opening is immediately convincing. Cooling mint, tart currant, citrus, herbs, carrot seed, fruit, fig, dates, and amberette are all represented. The trade-off is concentration. Dua lists Chilling by the Pacific as a 33.33% extrait de parfum, and to me it wears denser and fuller than Louis Vuitton Pacific Chill. Pacific Chill feels sheer. Dua feels more saturated. But that density comes with the strongest performance among my top rank options, 7 to 9 hours in my experience. If I were ranking strictly on how much Pacific Chill style scent you get over the entire day, Dua could arguably win. Because this countdown prioritized scent resemblance and transparency first, Dua finishes on number 2. But it is easily my strongest performer, and the best choice here if longevity matters more to you than perfect airiness. Montaigne Parfums Chili Pacific. Montaigne lists orange, citron, lemon, and mint up top, apricot, carrot seeds, rose, and basil in the middle, with fig and amberette in the base. In my experience, overall similarity is approximately 90%. Longevity is around 5 to 6 hours, with a noticeably fresh scent bubble during the first couple hours. Montaigne is interesting because its published note list is actually less complete than several fragrances below it. Blackcurrant, coriander, and dates are not included in a structure we are working from. So why does it win? Because a note list is not a fragrance. You can list some ingredients and still get the proportions, texture, sweetness, and transitions wrong. Chili Pacific does an excellent job reproducing the feel of Pacific Chill. Orange, citron, lemon, and mint give it that cooling brightness. Apricot, carrot seed, rose, and basil preserve the fruit and botanical tension, and fig and amberette soften the base. Most importantly, it avoids becoming excessively heavy. It is slightly sweeter and a little more orange mint and apricot forward than Pacific Chill, while the Louis Vuitton remains a touch more tart, smooth, and transparent, but the gap is small. The compromise is performance. 5 to 6 hours for me means Dua, Alexandria, and Pacific Soul can outlast it. But when I ask the most important question, which one most convincingly recreates the actual Pacific Chill wearing experience, Montaigne is my answer. In my experience, it's approximately 90% similar overall, and that makes Montaigne Parfums Chili Pacific my number one direct Pacific Chill alternative in this showdown. So after 13 fragrances, here are the winners as simply as possible. Closest overall to Pacific Chill, Montaigne Parfums Chili Pacific. In my experience, around 90% similar overall. It gets the balance, freshness, botanical texture, fruit, mint, and transparency closest. If your priority is simply give me one that smells most like Pacific Chill, this is my pick. Strongest performance, Dua Brown Chilling by the Pacific. In my experience, 7 to 9 hours. It keeps highly complete Pacific Chill structure, but wears heavier and denser and less transparent. If longevity is your priority, Dua is an easy answer. Best balance of accuracy and longevity? Alexandria Pacific Coast, in my experience, is 7 to 8 hours, and it becomes especially convincing in an early to mid dry down. It sits nicely between Montaigne transparency and Dua's concentration. Most distinctive direct interpretation would go to Afnan Rare Reef. Violet leaf and amberwood makes it woodier and sharper than Pacific Chill, but that also gives it the most personality among the direct clones. The true hybrids and bigger twists are coming in part 2. Surprisingly, the weakest performer was Oakcha Tango Noir. Despite being marketed as a 30% extrait, I only get around 3 to 4 hours of clearly noticeable wear. Strong concept, disappointing persistence. For best botanical detail outside the top 3, I would select Rayhaan Pacific Aura. The structure is unusually complete, with carrot seed, basil, fruit, fig, dates, and amberette intact. 5 to 6 hours keeps it out of the very top, but the botanical detail is excellent. And the most easygoing, smoothest interpretation by the clone would be Pacific Soul number 57. This softens the icy edges, becomes rounder and slightly creamier, but keeps carrot seed, basil, fig, dates, and amberette. With 6 to 8 hours, for me, it's my pick for the easiest and smoothest version of the DNA to wear. The biggest takeaway from this testing side by side is that matching the note pyramid isn't enough. Some clones list nearly every Pacific Chill note, but still come across heavier, sweeter, or more linear. Others list fewer notes and somehow reproduce the overall texture more convincingly. This is why I try to separate the opening from the dry down. The opening can sell you on an idea, and the dry down tells you whether the clone really understood the fragrance. And remember, this was the direct clone showdown. The hybrids, crossover fragrances, and bigger twists are coming in part 2, where I'll judge them whether they do something interesting with Pacific Chill rather than simply how closely they copy it. Let me know in the comments which one gets closest on your skin and which one lasts longest for you, and whether I missed a direct Pacific Chill clone that deserves a place in a future round. If you like this video, please like and subscribe for more fragrance reviews and clone showdowns. And check the description for the fragrances discussed today. Some links in the description may be affiliate links. If you purchase through one of those links, I may earn a small commission at no additional cost to you. Any fragrance sent to me for free for review is disclosed in the video when I review it. If you use one of those links, I appreciate your support. It helps me continue buying, testing, and comparing fragrances on this channel. Thank you very much for watching.